This program is brought to you by Emory University.
If I could have your attention, if you would be seated. The moment has come, and we are ready to get started. So let me welcome you. I'm Phil Thompson, the director of the Aquinas Center of Theology, and it is my great pleasure and really a distinct honor to be able to present the Flannery O'Connor Lecture Series, which has done extraordinarily well the last 3 years. We've had really fantastic scholarship and speakers, starting with Dr. William Sessions, who is here tonight, who is completing the authorized biography of Flannery O'Connor, soon to come out, we hope. And then it was followed, and he did a talk about Flannery O'Connor and death, and used Sigmund Freud as a basis for comparison. Then we went to Ralph Wood last year. Ralph talked about Flannery O'Connor and her connection to the Orthodox religion and iconography. So how many people here have been to a Flannery O'Connor lecture before? A lot. Good. Well, we're getting you back. Thank you. And I have this brief little quiz here, so I want to know where people are from, and I also want to know how much they know about Flannery O'Connor. So how many people here have read Flannery O'Connor, a story or something? And if you haven't, just raise your hand, because you don't want to. People will talk. How many have read 5 or more works by Flannery O'Connor? 10 or more works? Who has read everything by Flannery O'Connor ever? Well, we all got some ground to cover still, so that's good. We want to have some ground to cover. Okay, so people who came here tonight, I want to know how many people came from inside the perimeter. You know what I mean? 285 inside, ITP, ITP. Okay, how about the intrepid OTP? Yeah, face that traffic down, and you survived. You know what? That's my wife asking if you get a prize. You know what I tell my students when they ask for extra credit? I'm going to tell you all this. You don't get a prize, but you get the most important thing in the world, right? Rosie back there can tell you what I would say in my class. What would I say? You get the most important thing in the world, my respect and admiration. Yeah, they don't like it either. We don't want your respect and admiration. Yeah, we want a prize. We want some points. Okay, let's see. How many people came more than 20 miles from here? Wow. How about more than 40 miles? Louise, there, okay. People from Milledgeville. How about more than 60 miles? How about more than 100 miles? Okay, 150 miles. I'm going to knock some hands down. How far did you come from? North Carolina, fantastic. Where in North Carolina? Oh, Chapel Hill. Okay, well that brings me, this is an Irish Catholic Southern writer. Okay, so how many people here are from the South? Raise your hand. How many people here wish they were from South? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. See, I'm from Atlanta, I had to say that. So, how many people are Catholic? The other part, okay, Southern Catholic. Okay. How many people are of Irish descent? Wow. How many people really are from Irish descent? They're just not making it up. Anybody here from Ireland? We got some Irish people here. All right. Well, you're going to like the talk tonight. You're going to like the talk tonight. Well, it is my pleasure to introduce Rosemary McGee, who has a special announcement involving Emory and Flannery O'Connor. Rosemary, will you give us the good news? I think it will.
Phil, I would be glad to have your admiration and respect. And it's always a pleasure to be here with those of you related to the Aquinas Center and for this special, especially this evening tonight with our distinguished guest. But earlier this afternoon, many of you may have heard that thanks to the engagement with the relationship of the Mary Flannery O'Connor Trust, especially Louise Florencourt, and Father Garanzini of Loyola University Chicago. We at Emory Marble and our Manuscript Archives and Rare Book Library are pleased and proud to announce the acquisition of Flannery O'Connor materials that substantially deepens and expands the O'Connor archives and also makes a major contribution to the scholarship of one of the most important literary figures of our times. This is a moment that students, scholars, readers, librarians, teachers, all of us will enjoy and will have much to learn from this collection, which consists of papers and other materials of Flannery O'Connor from the 1930s with correspondence, writings, artwork. We have a few images of the materials here before you, journals, notebooks, photographs, slides, negatives, scrapbooks, printed material, clippings, and awards. We're just beginning now to enjoy the fruits of these remarkable material over 30 boxes. There are writings by O'Connor and artwork created by O'Connor during her time in college, and the collection contains notebooks as well as a prayer journal, which was published and introduced by Bill Sessions last year. A journal, a companion journal called Higher Mathematics 1, which includes her literary ruminations. There are as well objects, including her rosary, christening veil, eyeglasses, and memorabilia. The collection materials, among other elements of it, show the development of her consciousness as a writer and also as a literary personage. So that's the New York Times calling us about this even as we speak. There has been interest in this. This deep sense of vocation, I think for me, I was asked earlier today what meant the most to me, and I think this deep sense of vocation embedded in her early childhood days in art depicts a sense of trepidation about what she's about, but clearly conviction. So I'll just read one quotation. This will be something to inspire you to learn more about and enjoy the collections. But this is from an early childhood journalist. She writes, "I'm only 14 years old, but I feel that I need to bring literature into being. I've been told I have a knack for expressing myself. And so I turn my hand to writing." That's what we are all here tonight celebrating. Someone who felt the strong sense of vocation that was deeply embedded in her spiritual life and her personal journey and the literature that unfolded. And as we saw earlier, so many of us have had the pleasure, delight, the consternation. That's one thing about O'Connor that we learned, that it is very enigmatic work and very mysterious work. So that sense of mystery lives in these materials. You'll be hearing more about it, but I'll invite you all to participate with us in that celebration of these works coming to Emory. Thank you so much.
All right. So let's get on with the show and introduce our speaker. Thank you very much, Rosemary. Rosemary has worked a long time and worked very hard. And what I would say probably with a great deal of pleasant persistence. Pleasant persistence. A lot can occur if you have pleasant persistence and in trying to achieve the goal. So we're very thankful to Rosemary and to the Flannery O'Connor Trust. And today was a very, very special day for all of us. And she was kidding about the New York Times, but the New York Times is doing an article about this tomorrow. So, in fact, it's already online. Don't look at your phones. But it's already online. Okay, our speaker tonight is Dr. Bryan Giemza. I have been mispronouncing his name for a number of months now, calling him Giemza. I've been calling him Giemza, and I apologize. So, he comes to us from the University of North Carolina, where he is the head of the Southern Historical Collection there, right? One of the things he did when he was here been here at Emory, he went to go see the Pitts Theology Library collection at Emory. And those of you who have not been to see the collection that we have of 14th, 15th century Bibles, papal bulls, the letters of Cardinal Newman, et cetera, the nice thing we have is Pat Graham. Is Pat here tonight? Pat Graham right back there. He's trying to hide, but he can't. Right back there. Pat, if you want to go see one of the most amazing collections and tours you will ever see, and Pat is an absolutely wonderful guide, and he will do it. He will. You get your church group, whatever. Others have been there. They can speak to how impressive the collection there is. So that's one of the things he's been here and done since he came to Emory. But before he was in North Carolina, he was at Randolph-Macon. He got his degrees at North Carolina, though. He's got a lot of degrees, and I can relate. He's got a JD as well as a PhD. And before that, he went to the University of Notre Dame. So he's got connections to the University of Notre Dame. Anybody here, any Notre Dame people here tonight? Yeah. Oh, children, grandchildren, we'll count that too. How about the University of North Carolina? Some light blue out there, I can see it. Yeah. Good. How about Randolph-Macon? That's a little more. All right. Randolph-Macon. Rosemary. You're wearing the light blue. Okay. So, Dr. Giemza is famous in the area of Southern Irish history and literature. He's written 2 books, one about writers in the Southeast who are Irish, and one about Irish in the Southeast and their culture. And these are areas which have not been in the past explored very much, but I think they're very worthy of being explored, as you will see tonight. He's also won awards for teaching. He won from the Virginia State Higher Education Council. Did I get that right? Close. He won a teaching award, and you'll see tonight why he won that award, given how well he presents himself. He's also working on a number of projects currently, including a novel about smuggling in the 1980s on the coast of North Carolina. And I describe it, and this is not the way he would describe it, as Breaking Bad meets the Outer Banks. That's terrible. That's terrible. I'm sure it'll be a lot better than that. But not that Breaking Bad's bad. I mean, so he comes to us not only as a writer, I would say a historian, a cultural historian, now becoming a novelist. He has many, many talents, and you're going to see a few of those on display here tonight. So without further ado, Bryan.
Whoops. We're getting ahead of ourselves already here. Let's see. Here we are. Dr. Thompson, thank you so much for the kind introduction. I also want to say thank you to the Aquinas Center, Dean Love and the Candler School of Theology, to Louise Florencourt and the Flannery O'Connor Charitable Trust, to Bill Sessions. Thank all of you for being present tonight. It's my great privilege and astonishing good luck to have some time with you, so I hope to speak to you from the fullness of the heart. Flannery O'Connor says that you have to have a story to tell a story. And you might wonder what this fellow with all the vowels in his name is doing here in front of you tonight, talking about the Irish. Hopefully you won't still be wondering that by the end of the talk. I suppose I'm like most professors in that part of my academic journey has been a way of self-understanding. I was raised a Catholic in North Carolina, then one of the most uniformly Protestant states in the Union. When I went to the University of Notre Dame, I experienced some of the same culture shock that Mary Flannery encountered when she went to the University of Iowa. As the saying goes, a fish doesn't think about the water until he's out of it. And I started thinking about the South. And you might say, well, how did you get interested in the Irish? Well, my transplanted father gave me my Polish surname. And through my mother's side, the Kearney side, came the Irish ancestry, and I suppose the origins of my interest in the Irish in the South. From the Irish side, I inherited my easygoing temperament, my mild opinions, and from the Polish side, I inherited my sense of humor and piercing intelligence, along with the professorial ability to make everything just about as clear as mud. So to that end, let me tell you a little bit about where I'm going in this lecture. I'd like to show you how in thought, family culture, in fiction, Irish identity and history deeply informed Flannery O'Connor's worldview. To give you a sense of what it felt like for Flannery O'Connor to grow up in Irish Savannah, I'll share some interviews from members of that community who were her contemporaries. Finally, I'll consider how O'Connor tested her received Irish Catholic theology against other ways of understanding faith. I'll try, in other words, to demonstrate how this Irishness matters. You might think this is a tall order because Flannery O'Connor herself said that Irishness didn't matter much. I think we should remember what D.H. Lawrence said, "Trust the tale, not the teller." So what about the title of this talk? Everyone knew what I meant when I mentioned Irish and temper in the same breath. And this is captured in the idea to get your Irish up. It means to look out, that you're going to lower the boom. When I talk about Flannery with her Irish up, I'm playing on two ideas. One is that Flannery played down her Irishness. So what happens if we turn it up? What if we bring it up as an important part of her identity? And I'm also thinking about how Flannery O'Connor, like many another prophet and contrarian, had a temper that went against the temperament of her times. She liked to lower the boom on us, and I hope to make that tangible for you. That's a lot to cover, and given that the average human attention span is about 20 minutes, I'm asking a lot of you, but I'm going to try to keep you with me through some pretty shameless tactics, including giving away a dead mule. You didn't know you were in for this, but stay tuned. Yes, a dead mule. So anyhow, let's get started with a bit of context. The first thing I'd like you to understand about Flannery O'Connor as a Southern writer with Irish Catholic roots is that she's not the only one. In fact, she's in some pretty good company. Now, in Atlanta, I'm hoping some of these folks will be recognized. Do you know who this is? It is Joel Chandler Harris, and widely known as the author of the Uncle Remus tales, but what's not as widely known about him is that he putatively had an Irish father who abandoned him, and we know that he was, at the very least, a deathbed convert to Catholicism. Anyone recognize this bedraggled-looking fellow? You got it. Yeah. Abram, I'm impressed. This is Abram Joseph Ryan, and how did you know Father Ryan? The poems, yes, yes. He was, he kind of looks like a 19th century Johnny Cash or something. And he was sort of a countercultural figure. He was a poet, he was a priest, and he was a kind of pro-Confederate guy. And one of the things I got interested in is how do you get that combination? So I co-authored a biography of Father Ryan. Now, how about this? Anyone recognize her? She's a canonical American writer associated with New Orleans. You got it, yes. It's Kate Chopin. But what a lot of people don't realize is that she was Kate O'Flaherty Chopin. Her father was an Irish immigrant to St. Louis long before she identified with the French Creole community. That one's easy, right? Come on, Atlantans. We got Margaret Mitchell. How about this lady? Anne Rice, yes, very good. Y'all are great. So Anne Rice was born Howard O'Brien. That was her given name. And in fact, she was born into an Irish Catholic family in New Orleans. This dapper-looking dude, it's Cormac McCarthy, exactly. And a man who has every good claim to being one of our important living novelists, went to parochial schools in Knoxville, Tennessee. Now, the Citadel uniform should give this one away. Pat Conroy. And I asked him one time, do you think of yourself, how do you identify with the Irish? And he's, I can't stand the Irish. I think he protested a little bit too much. In any case, the point here is that the Irish in the South were a small but distinct minority, constituted, at the time of the Civil War, perhaps 7% of the immigrants who lived in the South. So, as distinct, and I'm talking about them as distinct from the Scotch Irish. So they were a small part of the population, even in Flannery O'Connor's Savannah. The Irish in the South faced a quandary. Should they try to blend in, or should they hold fast to their ethnic identity? In practice, they went both ways. By the time of Reconstruction, many Irish were part of the Southern mainstream, and they could become invisible, so to speak, by dropping the O in front of a surname. That's what Henry Grady did. He was Henry O'Grady before. Now, someone in the opposite direction, and we have the parade in Savannah to remind us of that fact. The decision was complicated by the Catholic piece of Irish Catholic. Sociologists have pointed out that a lot of times religion persists long after ethnicity fades. Moreover, O'Connor understood how Catholicity was enmeshed in Irish culture. In one of her letters, she observed that the angry young men in Ireland often go the way of James Joyce. But it's very painful to them because when they cut themselves off from the religion, they cut themselves off from what they've grown up with, as the religion is so bound in with the rest of life. Well, the third thing to understand as we think about Flannery O'Connor as an Irish Southerner is that her identification with the Irish was fairly weak. She said, she wrote to Betty Hester, in fact, "I was brought up in Savannah where there was a colony of the over-Irish. They have the biggest St. Patrick's parade anywhere around and generally go nutty on the subject." Flannery O'Connor